This is a screencast for the keychain or backpack charm that you're going to draw in SketchUp for Schools, and then we're going to 3D print on our 3D printers. So one of the first things you should know is that 3D printers like three-dimensional designs in millimeters. So it can read inches and convert it to millimeters, but it's much easier to just go up to here, go to Home on your SketchUp app, click on Create New, and then it always defaults to feet and inches, but we're going to click down at the bottom, not meters, but the bottom, millimeters. So in millimeters, we're going to not save that. That was a mess up from earlier. In millimeters, the 3D printer reads it much easier, and it doesn't have to convert anything. It just does it in the exact size of the millimeters. Now I'm going to use a circle, but I'm also going to show you a rectangle, a square, but we know how to do the circle because of the Turtle Sandbox. Keep in mind that you start to use the tool, but then you just let go of the mouse and you type in the actual measurement you want it to be. So this is looking for a diameter because it's a circle. Okay, remember it's actual size. And the max size that our keychain can be, that I wrote on the board, was about 75 by 75 millimeters length and width, and about 15 millimeters in height. Now that's the max. It can be smaller than that. It could be a little larger than that. But keep in mind that you should use a ruler and take a look at actual size in millimeters. So remember, our rulers say centimeters. So every centimeter is 10 millimeters. So if you wanted something that was 8 centimeters long, that'd be 80 millimeters. And that would be okay too. This is just a ballpark. If you're drawing it, 1,000 millimeters, that won't even fit on a 3D printer. So you got to make sure you're drawing it in actual size. It's the first thing I'm going to check when I'm grading these, and before it even can be 3D printed, is that it's actually a size that the 3D printer can print. So here's a circle, obviously. Some of the tools we haven't used before is a rectangle or a square. Now, when I click on the rectangle or the square, notice as I drag out in the bottom corner where it has the dimensions down here, there's a length and a width. So it's length comma width. So if I want it to be exactly a square, 75 comma 75, and I usually do a space after the comma. So 75 millimeters comma space 75. So there's a perfect square. If we wanted to do a rectangle, let's say I did 25 by 75. Okay, let's say I did a different rectangle. What would happen if I did 75 comma 25? Okay, so these are the exact same size, but because I had the smaller number as the first number, that was the width, and then the length, that was the length, and then the width was the second dimension, which was 25 comma 75. This one was 75 comma 25. Now it doesn't really matter as long as you know the difference. So like if you were going to write your name on here, it might be easier for it to be in this orientation versus trying to write it like this, or trying to write it straight and then rotate your lettering to fit on there. It might be easier just to start out with the shape you want it to be. So anyway, I am going to erase a couple of these, but there's some different shapes. Of course, you can modify and change these shapes however you want. Some of the tools that we haven't used before would be like the straight line tool, either the pencil or the squiggly line. The pencil allows you to draw straight lines. So let's say I wanted to cut these corners off. I could draw these straight lines. Okay, and then I can use the eraser and just erase the outer edges. Now, it's much easier to do modifying when it's in the two-dimensional plane, when it doesn't even have the third dimension yet. Because sometimes if you erase a line by accident, you might wind up messing up a surface where it's not three-dimensional anymore. So it's much easier to do all your designing basically in 2D and then pull it up to 3 dimensions. So let's say we got the corners cut off there. That was one way to do it. There's also this tool, which is an arc tool. Draws an arc. So you pick 2 points along the edge, and then I start to drag it. And when it kind of is tangent with the edge, it turns like that magenta color. That just means that the arc starts on one edge and ends on the other. Okay, and same thing, if I zoom in, I can erase just these lines and these lines. Okay, we don't want any extra lines. Another thing we're going to want to add when it's in 2 dimensions is the hole for the keychain. So notice as I'm scrolling along this line, it will stop at the midpoint. So I don't have to click there, but if I hover there for a second and then I start to drag down, you'll notice that there's that dotted line there. It's kind of snapped to that point. And I'm going to say this circle should not really be all that big. So I'm going to type in 2.5 millimeters. That might even be a little bit too large. 2 millimeters might be a little better, but you want to try to center it if you want your keychain to hang like this. You might want to not use the center point, but just like an edge point. You might want to put it in the corner to make it hang kind of on an angle. But once you have the circle there, you'll notice that as I lift this up, the circle stays a hole. So let's see, 15 is the max. I'll do it 15, but I'll show you something. So that's about the max. Let's say 15 millimeters might not fit that well in your pocket. Might be hard to get the keychain ring around this hole. So depending on your design, if your whole design is going to be the shape, you can go as high as 15 millimeters, but you could keep in mind that you might want to do something just a little bit different where the actual keychain hole is. So for example, if we wanted this to be a little thinner at that particular point so that it's a little easier to move the ring through the hole. Okay, we could do the same down here. If we were to draw a line under here. Well, no, because then it would do supports. We wouldn't want to do that. But anyway, you can cut out different shapes and cut them out. One thing that I haven't really showed you yet was this 3D tool, 3D letter tool. So if our max height is 15, but I make my keychain 5, that means I can still go about 10 millimeters higher to be the max, excuse me. But we can also add lettering. So underneath the shapes menu, there's the rectangle, here's the circle. You can also do different shapes like polygons and hexagons and stuff. Experiment with all of these. But this tool right here is the 3D text tool. 3D text tool allows you to add three-dimensional text. We're going to always want, let's see, let's make it bold, nice and big. You can change the font. Oh, I'm sorry, you have to highlight this to change. No, I think I have to actually retype it if I make a change there. The text, you always want filled. The text extrusion is how far it's going to stick out. So we're going to put in 5. It's only going to go 5 millimeters. The height, this is just a generic height based on how many things you have in your model here. But because we are just putting it on this one keychain, we're going to go with 5, and we'll see how big or small that comes out. Now, it came out a little small, but here's another really important point. So if you're 3D printing this, notice how it says on face as I have it on here. But you could also put it on the face here. You could also have it, if you put it down low like this, it might not print at all. So see how that one, it's not on top, it's actually down into the object. It will get lost on there. As I rotate around, it will rotate. So depending on how I want it. Okay, so let's just say, I'm going to go back to the circle one. Let's just say we want it to be, oh, did I lose it? X7, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Let's say 10 millimeters. That might be too tall. So it was 10 millimeters, the extrusion height. But anyway, I'm going to change it right now. So any kind of modifying or changing of this, first of all, when you click on this tool, you can click and drag this wherever you want it to. That's the move tool. We haven't really seen that one yet. Under that same menu is also the scale tool. You may have used the scale tool when you were doing the beach ball for the, let's see, so the height, let me just bring it down, for the beach volleyball. So now let's say that this is a good size. Now remember, you have 3 dots here, so in the corner everything stays uniform, but if I wanted to just flatten one dimension, I would have to click on one square towards the middle or towards the bottom. The corner will do it. Same with this. If I wanted to pull it out without it getting taller, and I mean taller that way, then I would click on the corner. If it's not in the right spot, you click on the move tool. It's highlighted in blue. I like to click on a corner, but you could also click on a midpoint so that you can line it up with that, however you want it. I'm noticing here I don't have my hole for the keychain ring itself, so I'm going to add a hole there. Let's go back. Okay, so first I have my circle, my lettering. So now I'm going to click on the hole and drag a hole. Now, if you didn't do this when it was 2D, okay, I drew a circle here, and then you use the push-pull tool, but notice how when this is highlighted, it has everything but the circle. You'd want to go inside the circle and then drag that surface, which if you went up, it would make it so it sticks out. We want it to go all the way down and be hollow. To be hollow, you have to then actually hover over this bottom edge. So if I went down further, look, it sticks out the bottom. It doesn't actually end at the bottom edge. If you want it to be hollow, you click somewhere on the bottom edge and then rotate around and make sure that you can see through it, so you know it's a hollow circle. All right, then the last thing I want to go over is, well, it's not the last thing, but one of the other tools I want to go over is the paint tool. So with our 3D printer, we can print in 2 colors. So I will show you the colors when you're in class next time, so you have your choices. But I'm going to pick 2 colors that are contrasting each other. So I did that in the yellow or the gold. I'm going to do the letters in purple. That might be a little too purple, so I'm going to just try a little different shade. Okay, notice I have all these other things on here. Before you save this, well, you should have saved this a long time ago, but let's save it now. And I'm going to do Keychain 2021, just because I have several keychains. 0.1, because I already did one beforehand. So this now is going to save into my SketchUp folder. If you don't have a SketchUp folder, you can't add it while you're in SketchUp. You have to add it by going into your Google Drive and making sure that you click on New Folder. Let's see, I think I can just scroll over all this and just select the folder and folder name, and then you'd make sure that you select that when you are saving. Now notice, there's a little bit of tedious, but I'm trying to get everything else off of my screen except for my actual design. So I'm going to try an easier way. If you triple click, you hit delete, and the whole thing goes away. To check, to make sure it's the only thing, okay, there must be something else hiding behind here. Here it is. And then hit delete, and it backs. To check, make sure there's nothing else on your model. You're just going to click on this and click on this bottom tool, and it's zoom extends. It will zoom so that you can see everything that you have on your model on one screen. Okay, I'm going to save this again. And now the most important part for 3D printing is that we're also going to export this as an STL file. Now, if I hover over it, you'll see that it says download model as STL file, and then it says for 3D printing. So the Google Classroom assignment, you're going to add both 2 files. You're going to add your SketchUp file, and then you're going to add your STL file. So your SketchUp file, let's see, let me get rid of this for a second. Your SketchUp file will have an SKP at the end of it, the .skp, so it'll be your keychain. Mine will be keychain 2021.1.skp. But you'll also have in your Google Drive now what will be the same file name but .stl. Both of those are going to go into the 3D into the 3D print assignment so that I can see the colors. So the Google SketchUp will not open the STL when I'm looking at it on Classroom. And I'm not too worried if there's yellow inside there. If this is yellow, I know this whole thing is going to be yellow. I don't even have to look at the bottom or anything like that. But basically, this is done. So remember that you can try all different shapes, sizes. Try to stay within the 75 by 75 millimeters by 15 millimeters. You can always check that with the tape measure tool. So I know from here to here is 4.21 millimeters, and between here and here is 5 millimeters. So my whole total from the bottom to the top of the letters is about 10 millimeters, a little bit less. And that'll take about 20 to 30 minutes for that to print out in plastic. Let's see, get rid of this. What is this from? Okay, so if you have any questions, just ask me in class. But as of now, this is done. Thank you for watching.